Good morning, students. Today we are going to start a new topic. We are going to take up a poem today. The name of the poem is The Ball Poem. It is in your textbook, The First Flight. This poem is written by poet John Berryman. You can see this is the author. He is the poet. He was born in America. He was an author as well as a teacher as well as a doctor, and he has done a lot of things. He has contributed a lot to literature and in many other fields. Now this particular poem that he has written, The Ball Poem, at the outset if you look at it, it is a simple poem about a small boy losing a ball. But as you are all aware, small children especially are very attached to their toys. All of you also must be attached to something or the other. Now, before we do the poem, these are some things that we can think about. These will help us get a deeper understanding of the poem. Now, do you have any possession you are very fond of? You definitely must be having. It might be a pen, it might be a small card, it might be a small gift, it might be a dress that you used to wear or you still wear. Okay, it is something that you're very, very fond of. Now, why are we generally fond of things? It's normally because such things are gifted to us or given to us by people we value, or because there are many memories attached to these things. That is why we are very, very fond of such things. And whenever we use these things, we feel happy. We remember the good times, or we remember the good people with whom we've been associated, right? And if we lose such a thing, something that we're excessively fond of, how do you think we will feel? We are definitely going to feel really sad, because no amount of consolation or no amount of replacement, nothing will be replaced, nothing will be able to replace that thing that we have lost, right? So this is the emotion that the poet is trying to bring out in this particular poem, the Ball Poem. Alright, now I'm going to read out the poem and explain it to you stanza wise. Okay, it's basically a poem written in free verse. There are not many rhyming words that you will find here. Okay, this is how the poem goes. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? I saw it go, merrily bouncing down the street, and then merrily over. There it is in the water. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. An ultimate shaking glee fixes the boy as he stands drifted, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. Okay? Now, if you look at the poem, the first few lines, the poet is observing a boy playing with a ball. And what has happened to the ball? The ball has gone into the harbor. The boy is playing with the ball and the ball has gone into the harbor. So the poet wonders, what is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? The poet wonders what the boy who has lost his ball will do now that he has lost the ball. The poet says, I saw it go, merrily bouncing down the street, and then merrily over. There it is in the water. So the action of the ball is described as merrily bouncing. The poet says that he saw the ball merrily bouncing. Bouncing, as you know, it means jumping up and down. A ball bounces when you put it up and down, right? Merrily is cheerfully, happily. So the ball bounced merrily down the street, and then merrily over, it fell into the water. And the poet knows that there is no point or no use in going and telling the child that there are other balls. Why? Because nothing can replace that one ball that the child has lost, right? Like we just discussed earlier, anything that we are associated with, any object that we are very fond of, if we end up losing that particular object, we feel really bad. And even if we get a new object, the same object, we will not have that attachment to that object as we had to the one which we lost, because there were memories that were associated with that particular object. So the poet knows that there is no use or no point in going and telling the boy that it's okay, it's just a ball, and there are many other balls that you can get, because what is the condition of the boy now? An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. And ultimate meaning final, there is nothing beyond that. So the boy is filled with great grief. Grief is what? Sadness, excessive sadness, because the boy is very sad at the loss of his ball. He stands rigid, unmoving, without moving, because he's struck with grief. He's filled with so much of grief that he's stuck in one place. He's unable to move, and his body is trembling. Trembling meaning shaking, shivering out of fear. Okay, either fear or sorrow. And the boy is standing, staring. Where is he staring? Looking fixedly at the ball. Where is the ball now? In the harbor. And the poet says, with the loss of his one ball, his youth has also gone. All his young days into the harbor where his ball went. Meaning, this loss has made the child realize something. It has given the child the idea of responsibility. The child has begun to understand something, and that is why it is as if his youth is also gone with that ball into the harbor. Okay. Now let us read the next part. I hope the first part of the poem is clear. The next part goes like this. I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball is worthless. Now he senses first responsibility in a world of possessions. People will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy. And no one buys a ball back. Money is external. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes the epistemology of loss, how to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know, and most know many days, how to stand up. So the poet continues to say that he observes this boy filled with grief, an overwhelming grief which makes him rooted, he's rooted to the spot, he's unable to move because of the grief he's filled with. But the poet says, I would not intrude. Intrude here means to disturb the thought process of the boy. The boy is undergoing some emotions, some thoughts, some feelings, and the poet does not want to intrude on the boy, disturb the boy, because he says a dime is 10 cents, a small amount of money. Another ball, also if the poet gets and gives it to the boy is not going to accept it, or is not going to realize the value. That ball is going to be worthless because it's a new ball, there are no memories associated with it, the boy is not attached to the ball. Okay. The poet then says, now he senses first responsibility in a world of possessions. In all probability, this loss is the boy's first loss. That is why the poet says, he senses first responsibility. The boy realizes that he is responsible for his possessions in the materialistic world. If he possesses something, if he has some belongings, it is his responsibility to take care of it. That is why in the previous lines he said that his young days have also gone with the ball. So he senses first responsibility in the world of possessions. And the poet says, people will take balls, balls will be lost always, little boy. The poet wants the boy to know that balls or any other thing for that matter in the world, they will be taken away. Your possessions will not always be with you. They might get lost. You might end up losing things you value, people you value, okay, memories you value. So many things can be lost, and you cannot buy back the things you have lost. Like we say, no, time is like water. You cannot touch the same water again. Time never comes back. Similarly, the poet says, possessions also, once they are lost, you can buy a new thing, but it won't be the same thing, because that value that the lost thing had in terms of emotions, memory, people associated with it, those things are not going to come back. And he says no one buys a ball back. So once something is lost, you don't buy back a lost thing. In other words, you don't buy back memories. You cannot buy back memories. You cannot buy back affection. You cannot buy back emotions, thoughts. These are all gone. Once gone, gone forever, right? So he says possessions can be lost always, and you can never get them back. And money, he says, is external. You might have as much money as you want, or more than what you need, okay, but the money can buy you food, it can buy you shelter, but can it buy you thoughts? Can it buy you happiness? Can it buy you joy? Can it buy you friendship? Can it buy you feelings? No, it cannot. That is why money, he says, is external. Something that you cannot internalize, that something that you cannot keep within yourself, like you can keep memories, thoughts, feelings, emotions, right? So he says money is external. And what is the boy learning now? His eyes are desperate. There is a desperation in his eyes. Why? Because he has lost something that was really dear to him, that he really loved. And now in that desperation, there is also a glimmer of some knowledge, epistemology. Okay, now what is epistemology? It is the knowledge or the study of something. So now what is the boy learning? He is learning the epistemology of laws, the knowledge of laws. How in this materialistic world that we live in, laws is something that each one of us has to cope up with. It is something we cannot ignore. We cannot say that I am never going to lose anything, or you are never going to lose anything, right? Because every time, at least some time or the other in our life, we end up losing something. It might be a small thing we valued, like a pencil or a pen or a shirt, or it can be something big like a person who was very close to us. So in this materialistic world, the poet is saying that the child is learning the epistemology of laws. How? Through the laws of this one small ball. Okay? And he is learning now how to stand up. Here, how to stand up means to bear or to cope up with law. Okay? Here he says, this boy is learning how to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know, and most know many days, how to stand up. Now this is one knowledge that we all learn. It's a difficult learning, no doubt, but then it is something that we all learn. How that we're going to lose, every time we're going to lose something or the other, and how we can cope up with this loss. We cannot sit crying always because we've lost something. We have to chin up, we have to bear up, we have to get up and keep moving, right? This is the knowledge that the poet says the child is also learning. So if you look at the poem, we feel that it's just about the loss of a ball. For a small child, a ball is very important. But if we look deeper into it, it deals with a more complex thing. It talks about loss in general. It can be the loss of a ball. It can be the loss of a person. It can be the loss of somebody you love. It can be the loss of a relationship, a feeling, a person or a thing. And the poet is trying to tell us how we all must cope up with all this loss. How we must learn to cope up with loss, because losing something is a part and parcel of our life. So that is the poem. I hope it is clear to you. Now these are some of the literary devices that are found in the poem. If you look at the first literary device, it is personification. The ball is personified because the poet says it is merrily bouncing. Merrily is a human emotion. Personification is when you give human qualities to inanimate objects, right? So the ball has been personified, and the poet says that it is merrily bouncing down the street. Then we have a metaphor when the poet says balls will be lost always. Now here the ball is not only representing a ball, but it represents something larger, that is loss of anything, whether it is a thing, a person, or an emotion, or a feeling, or a relationship, or anything. Okay, these are loss. So that is a metaphor. Then we have repetition in this line. What is he to do? Then we have alliteration. Who had lost his ball? Buy the ball back. This is an alliterated line. This is alliteration, right? Okay, these are some of the literary devices. Okay, then. So that was the poem. I hope it is clear. Please remember that the poem is not just about the loss of a ball, but the loss of a larger thing. It gives us a greater perspective, a larger perspective into life, and how loss is a part and parcel of life. Thank you.